What's up, party people, and a place to be? Let's take a look at the Starship Generator by Mark Kingsnorth, who makes a lot of really awesome add-ons that are made for generating different things, not just starships. He has a few other add-ons that are fantastic. I know a lot of people have reviewed this, and I will be no different. As you can see, I have 3 ships here that I created using the Starship Generator. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit. So this is maybe an impromptu tutorial or something like that. But I did these all in the same, within the same blend file. And I would like to go ahead and show you, first of all, where do you get it in case you don't know. So here we are. As you can see, I purchased the $15 version of it, which has an hour-long making of video. Now, something told me, go ahead and grab that version with the hour-long making of video. And I'm glad I did. Here's why. Anytime someone would mention geometry nodes, my eyes would gloss over and I would fall asleep because I just didn't get it. I couldn't wrap my head around geometry nodes in any way, shape, or form. No matter how many videos I looked at, I got it, but I didn't, right? And you don't want to tell anybody that you didn't understand geometry nodes because then they'll look at you like, oh, you don't understand it, or yeah, like that. So I'm glad that I bought this because in this hour-long video, he walks you through step by step on how to make your own Starship generator. And it gave me a much better understanding of geometry nodes. It was an unexpected surprise. I highly recommend that you get the one that costs $4 more for the video. Fantastic purchase, I think. Now, with that said, obviously, if you go and you activate it, I'm sure that most of you know how to use an add-on. As a matter of fact, for those of you that don't, I am going to probably make a separate video because I do specialize in, when I do teaching absolute beginners on how to do things such as how to organize your add-ons and use add-ons within Blender. But that's not going to be this video. So with that said, I am going to start from scratch and talk a little bit about the different features. And the thing that I don't want to do within this review / tutorial, here's a review, get it. But kind of walking you through how I'm approaching this after playing with this for a little bit and just my thoughts once you get in on the things that you can do, some things to be aware of. So here we go. So here we are with a pretty much blank scene. I just have a sun there. So we're going to hit Shift A. Once you've installed it, of course, and you go up to Mesh, and then you go up to Starship, in which you will generate a starship. So now I don't have the material and everything. I didn't apply that. I'm not really worried about that. I just like the starship. Now this is version 1.1. He just did an update, and one of the first things that I noticed about this was, if I go to statistics, is keep in mind that when you start to play around with making the different shapes, generating different starships, then you want to be very aware of how many faces in your face counts, because some of these models, once you start playing around with them, can get very dense. Now you're like, okay, this is great. What do I do? Well, this is a modifier, so we're going to go over to the modifiers panel. So let's take a look at this. The first thing we have is the seed. That is the overall different ships that you can make. And the numbers are just go from 0 to whatever. And so you see that's a huge jump. So that's the first thing that you should be aware of. these make huge jumps. Like there's no subtlety to this. And the only thing I'm doing is I'm just going down, and there's the swings are so wildly different that, so let's say, but the cool thing is that if you don't touch anything else and you say write that you wrote down, I'm just going to write down this number. So it's 124481. So I'm writing this down on my little pad here. Fortunately, the pen doesn't work. There's a pencil. I'm going old school, right? So I'm writing down this seed number. So it's 124481. Now I'm writing this down, and that's something that I liked. So now I can go type in, let's type in 501. That's an entirely different thing, right? I just randomly typed in a number. Now let's go back to the number that I had, 124481, and hopefully I'll get that other one back. Was that it? Because I don't remember. Let's go back down. Yes, that's it. So if you write down the seed numbers that you like, then when you go back in, you will be able to get the model that you want. So now, what else is going on here? So I would love to sit here and say, okay, minimum scale. These are like X, Y, Z, Z coordinates. Minimum scale, maximum scale, minimum extrusion, maximum extrusion. All of these things, these variables that you can create here. Each one of them will drastically alter what you're about to do. So there's no, there's really, okay, so here we go. I'm going to go up with the minimum scale, just one value, watch. That changed kind of dramatically. It's still there, but, and it's going up in increments of 20. And so every time I go up, I'm getting a brand new ship. It kind of looks like the same, it has the same shape, essentially, but these are swinging very wildly, right? And so if I go here, if I do the next one, it's still keeping within this boundary, but you are giving variations on everything. And so if you were going to make an armada of ships that kind of looked within, let's say they belong to the same planet, then you want to keep, then if it's underneath that seed, then they should look all different. Now, if I go down to maximum scale, all of a sudden it changed. So every little thing is going to change this. And I can't sit here and pretend like, okay, here is a definite thing that you can do that will make these incremental changes. That's not what happens. So all of these, this is something that you play around with until you get something that you like. A maximum extrusion, minimum extrusion, all of these other things in here. So these are your first set of controls. So object subdivision, whoops. Let's see something here. So when you are going to, I just went to object subdivision. So you see it jumped from, what was it, like 200 and something? Let's go back. To about 1 million. Okay, so it's, you see how it jumped from like 1 million polys and it went back down. And so that's something to keep in mind. So try not to go too nutty over with the subdivision. I don't know what the object occ tree is. I don't know what that is. I have no idea. So occ tree depth. But when I change it, it totally changed. So it went from this to this. So when you get this particular mod, you're going to have to just play around with it. So this is your first set of modifiers that you can play with. And now, and in the next part, we're going to talk about big objects, medium objects, small objects, and all of that, all that jazz. So we have this second set of modifiers at the bottom here, and that's Starship controls. So we have big objects, we have small objects, we have a lot of other things that we can use here. But let's take a look at the rest of the modifiers. When it comes to big objects, let's see, let's go back up here and let's change the seed value. Oh, and let's get back up to maybe 4, and let's do this. Now, when you are increasing some of these numbers, you're gonna have to give it a second to really catch up with what you're doing. Now, within here, I would not mess with any of this right now because there's really no reason to. But what you can do is, let's say that the small objects, you don't particularly like these small objects. You're looking at them and going, I really don't like them. Great. Small, medium, and big objects, you can just go ahead and hide them. It's going to take a second. So now you still have this completely different ship. And if you wanted to get rid of the medium objects, because you're like, let me see what it looks like with this, then all of a sudden, as you can see, that's another big dramatic. So that's with medium. Without medium, that's an entirely different ship. And so if I just wanted medium objects, and let's get rid of the big objects. Let's see what happens. So now you have, well, you got a box. You pretty much got a box. There's this big box underneath here. See if we put the small objects back. Okay, that really didn't do anything. And I'm going to bring the big objects back. So right here you can see that that changes a lot of things. Now, with the panels, now that we have this selected, you don't have to have the panels. If I hide the panels, so if I bring the panels back, you can see that the edges and vertices jump up a lot. And so if you take the panels off, then you'll get a much smoother ship. So if you want to do your own greebles or something like that, then maybe you might want to take the panels off. But let's go ahead and put the panels back on and give it a second to refresh. So I think that's a pretty important thing here. And let's go ahead. So the booster is going to give you these booster rockets, which sometimes you might have to look for them. And I can't find them. Oh, here it is. Okay. So that's the booster. So if you want to take that off, and you can adjust the scale here. Booster offset, you can play around with that, and you can see it's still trying to update. Might crash on me, who knows. And let me go back to the panels. So the panel subdivision level, it's at 1. And you see we got these little jagged edges. Now, when I went to the website and looked at some of the documentation, then it's saying if you increase the subdivision level, then it should take care of that. But it's going to be at the cost of making the model more dense or heavy. And you see it's taking a second for this to update. So it's doing that a little. It did that a little bit but not much. And so we can play around with these panel proportions. Let's see what we can do here. So this is taking, I just clicked that. That's taking a minute to update. I don't know what's going to happen. And if Blender crashes, it crashes. But I want to at least do this live or do this while I'm looking at it so that you guys can kind of know what to expect. But for me, instead of me trying to increase that, I might just take the panels off and just use another. There are a few different ways to make panels. The materials, you can, I just pressed the button and now it's not doing anything. I'm going to give it a second to update. So Starship add material. So there's a Starship material. And so material slot 0 of the object. Let's go to, wait a minute. Is this supposed to be in Eevee or is this supposed to be in cycles? Let's see. I don't know. I don't know. This is something that I hadn't really thought about, but oh, okay. So I had this on Eevee, so it really wasn't as far as that. Because when I was trying it before, I'm like, why is it not giving me the material? Because I know it's there, and I just wasn't thinking. So this is what it's going to look like when it's rendered. I like this. Vertices and edges, we got a lot going on here. But yeah, so I'm going to go back here. Let's turn this off. So that's where you can, and you can change out the material and you can add your own material and everything else. So now if we're looking at the mirror modifier, well, it's kind of self-explanatory. But let's play around with the mirror modifier. Obviously, if you don't want the mirror modifier, then you don't need it. And you just want to see what it looks like when it's not mirror modified. It's just going to take a second. So now you still have a ship, but it's one side. I keep looking at this, the way that this is set up, and I am just very curious if you can, if I could find a way to make a mech or a giant super robot. Let's do this. You can also play around with, let's see what happens if we press Y. Guess I'm trying to see if I can make it crash, right? Because there are just so many variables to this. So check that out. That's kind of cool. Well, let's get rid of that. And obviously you can play around with a lot of this. Just be careful when you are playing around with it, because it could just make everything go haywire. And as you also can see that it's gonna increase your face count and your triangle count and all that other good stuff. Resize. This is very interesting. So length. So right now it's at 15. If I hit 10, it's gonna be, it's just gonna squish, right? It's just gonna kind of compact itself in, right? If you just change the length, that's all it should do, because you're just changing the length. It just kind of makes the whole thing smaller, though. which is cool, but I'm just saying, like, it's interesting. So I found that funny. I thought that it was going to have this squishing effect in it, but no, it just makes it smaller. I can't really tell anything else. And the UV project, I did not, I in no way messed with UV maps and UV mapping and stuff like that. So this is something that I just kind of left out. So that is the basics of Starship Generator. Now, I'm not going to leave without saying, you go over here, you right click, Starship Generator, apply all modifiers. And you gotta wait. And we're gonna wait, because I want you to see how long this takes. Now, my little 1080 GTX graphics card ain't what it used to be in this land of RTX 490s. But it's not a bad graphics card still. But as you can see, this is taking some time. And so right now we got about 1 million faces, right? 1.5 million faces. I'm still waiting, because if this is one of your first times working with Blender, for whatever reason, you decide to go right to the add-ons and you're like, okay, apply modifier. This might even crash. I don't know. But it's taking its time to calculate. And I notice this most of the time, it takes time. And also I am recording. So there we go. So it finally did it. Finally gave us a Starship object right here. And this is, if we go to edit mode, as you can see, this is pretty dense. This is very, very, very dense. Lot of poly. So obviously you can just put a decimate modifier. They suggested decimate with planar to decrease it. You can also sculpt with this if you wanted to go into sculpting, because you definitely got enough polys in here. So you definitely got enough polys. Let me see what we can do here. So the inflate brush. If I want to go for probably should have put symmetry on. That would have been good. So if I want to go for this retro, give me kind of a 70s, a sleek 70s vibe where everything was rounded. It's futuristic. You see it's starting to break apart though because of the jagged panel breaks. So you can see what it's doing right here. But I mean, I guess if I hit shifts, no. But well, as you can see, you can kind of play around with this. I would probably remove, if you're going to sculpt on it, you would probably remove the panels anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this, and let me do the YouTube things. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, etc., etc. All right, guys. Peace.